22nd official day of the AUS debates. We'll be starting with our AMS Rep debate, followed by our presidential debate. And we have 5 of our 6 candidates here at the moment for the AMS Rep debate, and I will let them introduce themselves and their platform, and I will give them a minute each to do so. So we will start now with Barnabas.
My name is Barnabas Kara. I'm running for AMS Rep. I think I'm qualified for the job and that I've had a history of positions in the AUS. I was an RA in Vanier last year, and I'm an elected student senator. And on AUS, as an AMS Rep, one of my main goals is A, to try and stop or restrict the building of non-student housing on campus, which I think is really, really important. I know it's really important for lots of students. Secondly, it's kind of a cool idea of trying to integrate AMS clubs, execs, into more of the decision making for the AMS council, so they can be more of a decision makers, as so many more students are involved with clubs than with the AMS. I think we really need to harness that. And lastly, to try and use more responsibly AMS funds and not screw up in ways that make us really accountable to students and make students very angry with their AMS. So try and even bring students into the decision-making process of how to use those funds better. I think that it's really the most important place for a student senator who's trying to learn about student issues to be on AMS Council. So that's really why I want to do it, to be a learning experience and let me learn more about what's issues for you guys.
My name is Stuart McGilvery. I'm a third-year political science student running for re-election as one of your AMS reps. Recently, in my past term, I've served on the University External Relations Committee, Legislative Procedures Committee, and a few others. And if re-elected, I'd like to fight on several of the issues that I think are most important to students, including putting students first in the upcoming UPass negotiations and advocating for the UBC lines with TransLink. As Barnabas said, being firm in the position that the development of Gage South should not include market housing and needs to be student-centric, as well as focusing on ways we can make education or post-secondary education more accessible, particularly through lobbying initiatives like the recent Where's the Funding campaign. So this is those are my priorities. I've really enjoyed serving art students over the last year as an AMS rep, and I hope you'll consider supporting me again. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Clark McCorkle, and I'm also running to be your AMS rep. I think that you should vote for me because I represent a lot of different student ideas, being a transfer student myself, a commuter student. In my second year, I was pretty non-involved, so I know how to reach out to those people. And in my third year, I am Vice President Internal of the AUS. I have coordinated Frosh and Arts Week, and served as the Assistant to the President. And I've also sat on just about every AUS committee or chaired it. 3 points that I really would like to push, kind of agreeing with these guys about Gage South. I think that affordability for students is really important, and that having non-student housing for faculty who have incomes, we should be giving it to the students who are a lot more vulnerable, international students and out-of-province students as well, who will have a lot more trouble finding housing over the summer. I also would like to make food cheaper on campus. I think the first way of doing that would be to get all the AMS vendors to accept UBC card payment, and then working with BAFCOM to work for, in the future, getting food prices lower. And then, as Stuart said, I think that student affordability in the form of student loans and doing other creative campaigns like the Where's the Funding one would be really beneficial.
Alright, so hi, my name is Montana Hunter. I'm also running for AMS Rep. I've gotten fairly involved in UBC, although late in my degree. I'm currently a student senator as well as vice chair of the AMS University External Relations Committee. I've also been quite involved with Model UNs, being an AC for World Model UN and the Undersecretary General for UBC Model United Nations. My platform rests on 3 different points. I really want to focus on Gage South as well, because I think that's a really, really essential issue, and that motivating students and getting students engaged with that is one of the primary responsibilities, or should be one of the primary responsibilities of AMS reps this year. Beyond that, I really think governance is a current issue, as the current governance situation at UBC is a serious problem and needs to be addressed. And if I'm elected here as an AMS rep, I will focus on governance as well. Beyond that, I really want to engage art students campus-wide issues. So Gage South, so governance, and actually really mobilize the entire Faculty of Arts to help out and engage with those issues. So thank you. We'll vote in the elections.
I'm Rorschach Mountain. Like Stuart, I'm also running for re-election. Over the past year, I've had a lot of fun representing art students on AMS Council. I've sat on 5 different committees, ranging from everything from the News Sub to University External Relations. So I have a lot of different experiences in different aspects of the AMS, and I'd love to continue to act as a progressive voice for art students on the AMS.
Alright, so I have 4 questions for AMS reps. We'll try and alternate who starts. So, my first question is, what do you think the most important issue is specifically for arts students coming to the AMS recently, or that you'd like to bring to the AMS? We'll start with Stuart.
That's a good question. I mean, as a representative for art students, it's important certainly to put their interests first. But a lot of the issues that I focus on, I think, have a greater scope and are relevant for all UBC students. And so I take that part of my role seriously. That I'm on AMS Council for primarily art students, but also on a council that governs for the entire Alma Mater Society. And so I wouldn't really say there's one specific issue, specific to art students on which I'm really passionate. But I think the issues I do care about, the Gage South development, TransLink issues in the UPass, as well as accessibility of education, certainly have resonance with art students, just not per se more or less than other students.
I also agree that a lot of the issues that I would like to bring to AMS kind of fit and would represent all students. I think specifically for art students, where we all have such different focuses in our major, there's so many very different departments, and that kind of making a more cohesive way of getting involved and bringing people together would be a really great way. I think that because I'm so integrated with the AUS, I could really represent that well and get those ideas from the AMS to the AUS and help involve the art students more. But definitely I think that things relating to affordability, sustainability, and transparency are all things that would really benefit art students.
Engagement, to put it bluntly. I know it's a very, very hard issue to quantify, and it's a very, very hard issue to really come to grasp, particularly in a year-long term, but I think it's one of the most important issues for art students, and just connecting them to what's going on in AMS. Art students as a whole, and students in general, don't really know about a lot of the issues that the AMS is dealing with and don't know the details of it. So it's finding out those issues, staying engaged with those issues, and then bringing them back and presenting them to the students in the Arts and the Graduate Society. And I think that is right now the most important issue for art students.
I think the biggest issue affecting all students in the coming year will be sort of the fundamental changes that will be happening inside the AMS, both in terms of us constructing and eventually moving into a new building, and sort of changes to the business structure of the AMS. Something which I would like to do is make sure all student voices and all student opinions are heard with regards to these changes, because we're going to be sort of stuck with them for a long time, especially when it comes to the new stuff. So personally, I think that's probably the biggest issue, specifically to this year.
I really strongly agree with Montana about it. I think it's engagement. I think it's a huge amount of apathy, which I think it's an issue for the AMS and the AUS, and especially for the AUS because we're probably the most apathetic faculty out there. But in the capacity as AMS councillor, I think it's very, very important to get people more involved in what the AMS is doing, and not just through awareness, not just letting them know what the AMS does, but let them take part in it. You know, they don't want to just hear what the AMS is doing, so they want to be part of the AMS. It's this idea of them and us as students and the AMS. That's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be us as students, we are the AMS, and if there's any them, that's university administration that we're trying to deal with. So I think it's really, really important to get students on board, not only in their sentiments towards the AMS, but also in their actions, and let them gain ownership over what we're doing, and blur the line between clubs and services, so we become a real student association as opposed to just an overseeing body that students don't really feel a part of.
I feel like I should give time for rebuttals because there are so many candidates. So I will move down the line, and if anyone has a rebuttal, we'll give 30 seconds to each candidate. Just keep it quick. We'll see if there are any, and if that ends up not working, then we'll just skip it in the next few questions. So Stuart, I'll give it to you if you'd like.
I'm going to take a pass. I mean, it's it's pretty obvious there's a lot of good candidates. Certainly an awareness of the right issues we should be advocating on.
Yeah, certainly everyone else has said things that I really agree with. I think that engagement is really important focus.
I'm going to echo what's already been said.
That's cool. Just seeing if there was anything out there anyone actually really wanted to debate with.
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
I was wondering, just you guys are talking about engagement, and we're all talking about engagement, which I think is really important. I'm proposing that we activate that engagement through trying to bring students on board by giving them ownership over over student services and things that the AMS can do, and they can come and try and get the funding and expertise that the AMS can lend them for that. Do you guys have any other ideas for how we can actually increase engagement instead of just saying we're going to do it?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really great services in AMS, like the Innovative Projects Funds and sustainability. I think just really building awareness of these things existing is kind of what we really need to be doing, because I know for myself, when I first transferred here, I had no idea that these things existed. And I think that part of what I would like to do is to bring the things that AMS has to offer to the AUS Council, and then through that, it goes through the clubs through their execs, their friends, and just through my own experiences, I think I have a lot of connections with different groups on campus. And I think just talking to people and, yeah, just letting them know that these services exist and are there for them to take advantage of is the way to build the engagement.
Just, all right. To build on that, I think communication and conversation are really, really two essential key parts of that. Communication through Twitter, emails, Facebook, blog posts, videos, whatever it is. It can't just be any of those on their own. It has to be all of them, and all of them being presented to different people, and those being shared by friends to quote-unquote trendsetters, etc. And then it's also it's important to keep it personal too, and just to talk to as many different people as you can, engage with as many different people on a very personal level too, because that's what gets people interested. People go through 14 different event invitations and hit decline in every single one on Facebook. But if one of their friends comes up and says, "Hey, this is really important to me. This is really interesting, and I think you should try to get engaged with them," the chances of them actually being motivated are significantly higher. Same thing with classroom announcements. Just finding ways to connect people in very personal ways and most effective ways.
Really specifically, one thing that an AMS can do is develop new mailing lists, which go out more frequently than the current AMS Insiders mailing list. Because AMS is always really sensitive about sending emails to students, because for every set of emails they send out, there's always 1,000 students end up unsubscribing. I think there should be sort of mailing lists that students can sign up for with regards to specific issues like external lobbying or student services, things like that. So more students that want to be involved can be involved.
I think that's a really important question, because it's pretty easy in an election to say what needs to be done, but it's important also to talk about how. And I think one thing we could look to is perhaps the newest AMS president, Matt Parson. One of his newest initiatives is that he's made a commitment, and part of his salary is on the line, but his commitment is that he's going to go out of his way every single week to talk to different AMS students. And so that's something that I think, particularly for us, because as we were saying earlier, one of our primary functions is representative, to represent our students. It's very difficult to do that if we're not talking to them. So something, obviously we're not paid, so it can't exactly be mirrored, but something along those lines of making that extra effort every week to actually talk to our students about the issues.
Fantastic. So my next question is about council as a whole. So what do you think the biggest challenge facing the working relationship, internal function of council is? How do you see yourself fitting into the bigger picture of council, and what role do you want to take on?
So just to clarify, AMS Council?
Yes, council, committees, the working of the AMS rather than the issues facing the AMS, so internal structure. Does that make sense? Perfect, we can start with
Right. I think that one of the best ways of just kind of integrating the internal workings of the AMS Council was that there's just a lot of issues I think we all feel really strongly about. For example, Gage South came up a lot. I think that we can all kind of work really together and push those initiatives. Everyone definitely has their own pet projects that they'd kind of like to take care of, and I think that that's really great. And in kind of working together on other larger initiatives that can affect everybody, we can kind of see how well we work with the other people on the council, and then kind of seek them out for help of pushing the individual projects. And I think that would be a really good way of bringing everyone together.
AMS has some interesting kind of difficulties in how it works, and that it's a lot of very, very passionate, very, very well-intentioned people who often have specific pet projects, it's not quite the word for it, but specific focuses that they want to work on, and very different focuses, and then they're set to voting on each other's issues, etc., without necessarily knowing a whole lot about it. And one of the difficulties then is communication between councils, between committees, making sure that everyone on AMS Council really knows what's being discussed and knows the ins and outs, whether that's through debates during council and more specifically through greater communication between committees, etc. And I think that's something that industry worked on, and I think it's something that can be developed fairly easily.
I think probably the biggest issue sort of with regards to like, the internal workers of AMS Council is the fact that, especially with the new business structure coming in, AMS Council could potentially become sort of more of a rubber stamp than anything else, because a lot of its powers are getting removed from it. And I think the challenge for future councillors is to ensure that councillors are still like very, they have a lot of information about what's going on and making informed decisions, rather than coming by just every other Wednesday and voting for whatever like they were told to vote for. And I think the best way to do that is to sort of follow the AMS rules with regards to councillor attendance, things like that. Councillors that aren't around very often, I think there's methods in place to make sure that they get removed. And I think that's probably the best way to make sure that councillors remain engaged.
I mean, I think we're all stepping around it, but the idea is really the restructuring of the AMS that's going on right now, and it's going to be continuing to go on over the next 12 months. And I think it's really important that we all take it really seriously. I think that something that we can add to that is that I've been part of lots and lots of different other organizations on campus in regard to Res Life and clubs and sports, and I can just see how well some of those smaller associations work amazingly. I think it's really, really important to try and bring the things we learn from those other student organizations to the AMS and try and make the AMS work like an efficient small student organization. I think it has to do with getting passionate people on board who actually enjoy what they're doing, whether it's raising student awareness or whether it's actually getting something done. They enjoy it, and they enjoy the act of doing it, and it's not a chore for them. And we can all, people do the AMS and they get involved in the AMS because it's what they love doing, not because they either feel it's a responsibility or they're doing it for their own political ambitions or whatever it is. So I think it's really important to try and to bring in ideas and functional models from other student associations, which we can find at UBC and that we've all been part of, into the AMS and try and learn something from them.
Yeah, I really liked what Montana and Rorschach were saying, in that it does seem like a lot of the time the issue that comes before council, maybe, and we're probably all guilty of it at one point or another, but we're not all experts on it. And not that we have to be experts, but it's certainly important when we're voting on issues that generally are carry a great deal of importance that we do get informed. And so the committee structures are a great way to do that, obviously. And I think it's really positive as well that the executive we have right now elected, the majority of them have been in that position. They've been councillors before, and so they know what it's like, and hopefully that informs the way that they're prepared to engage with council on different issues, so that there is enough notice ahead of time on issues of great importance, and so that we can get informed either through the committees or talking to the executives, but just making sure that when that issue comes before council for the final time for a vote, we're all making as informed a vote as we can.
Fantastic. So I think I'm just going to go with one more question. What committees would you want to sit on the AMS, and why? As well, are there any projects you've yet to discuss that you really want to bring to council instead of sitting on a committee, and like where would your time mostly be spent? I think we're at Montana.
Right. So, I really want to stay engaged with the University External Relations Committee. It's one of the committees that I'm most passionate about, and I find it particularly fascinating. I'm very big on both lobbying external groups such as TransLink, as well as connecting to the university on issues such as governance and Gauge 7. So that would be one area of my interest. The other one is I'd love to sit on education as well. Try to connect the AMS more with the student senators, as there's been, particularly in the past couple of years, a sort of disconnect between student senators and the AMS, even though they should be working towards the same set of goals. And what I hope to do is by sitting on both these committees, which theoretically should be working with student senators is try to increase and solidify that engagement and cooperation in the coming years?
Over the past year, I sat on 5 different committees, which was definitely overkill. So in the coming year, I'd like to just focus on the new subcommittee, which is I think an extremely important aspect of the AMS, University External Relations, and Sustainability Committee as well. I've had experience with all of those 3, and I'd like to continue to work on those.
I would like to sit on SAC committee because I think it's really, really, really important to try and get the clubs more engaged in what's going on in the AMS. Because if you see how students are engaging in this university with other students, they're engaging through clubs and they're engaging through sports. They're not engaging through the AMS. And if the AMS wants to really fulfill its mission and try and engage students and make them feel part of this community at UBC, we really, really need to hold out the hand to the clubs and try and get them on board and make them part of the decision-making process. I also want to get involved in student life and BAFCOM, just so I can understand more about how these things work, and then I can better navigate my ideas later on.
Well, I've really enjoyed being involved during my last term on the Legislative Procedures Committee. It's certainly helped to bring me up to speed on a lot of the way the AMS works, and so I found that really informative. Earlier this week, I became a member of the Student Administrators Commission, which, as Barnabas said, works with the clubs, and as a former club president, that's something I'm really looking forward to, is finding out just how that institution works and how it can better work with all the clubs. But probably my favorite one has certainly been the University and External Relations Committee, and I think for me that's mostly because so many of the issues about which I care are not things about which only the AMS has a say, and in most cases they're the kind of thing where the AMS doesn't actually have a lot of say. And like Roshak said, with the changes to the business structure, council is losing a bit of the power it already has. But I think at the same time, on issues like transit, accessibility of education, and the development of land on campus, it's really important that we're working through the committees with the VP External, with the VP Academic and University Affairs, to make sure that the AMS's voices are heard.
2 of the committees that I'd really like to sit on would be BAFCOM and University External Relations, just because I think that they are the ones that we can address affordability concerns the most in, and that's one of the big concerns for me. I'd also like to sit on student life, just because I feel like I would bring a lot of experience to that, having sat on AUS student life, having organized Frosh, having coordinated Arts Week. As well as that, I think that I'd also really like to stay involved with the AUS, because I think that's a really great way to allow more art students to have a greater understanding of what's going on in the AMS. And so just staying on AUS committees as well would be a great way of expanding that breadth of people that know what's going on.
Fantastic. Are there any questions from our audience here before we wrap up? Awesome. Then I will give all the candidates 1 more minute to give their last sales pitch and wrap up why you should vote for them for AMS representative. I think we're at Roshak's time to start.
Well, I've absolutely loved representing our teams over the past year, and I'd love to have a chance to do it again, so please consider me as a AMS representative.
I'm really, really, really passionate about these issues. I really, really want to make a difference. I feel that I've got the experience in regard to the university and student societies. Having been an RA, having been involved in clubs, having been part of the AUS and worked with Arts 1 committee and First Year committee and all these things, I know how to get people involved. I know how people get interested in these things, and I know how to make it personal to them and get them on board on this. So I really, really, really think it'll be valuable in regard to reaching out to students, me personally, not only the things that I'm going to try and institute, but I myself am going to go out and get people involved in this. I've done it before in many other capacities, and I'm determined to do it now. So please make Barnabas your arts rep. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's similar to Roshak. I mean, it's easy to talk about being an AMS rep, but I can't say often enough how much I really enjoy it, how rewarding it is to represent art students every other week in council and throughout the year on the committees and at different events. So I hope that I've kind of inspired confidence in you guys as voters, that I care about the issues that matter to you, and that I'm worth re-electing. And so I hope next week you'll cast your ballot and return a good set of AMS reps. Thanks.
Yes, please vote for me. I think I have the perspective, the experience within the AUS and just at different universities. And I'm just really passionate about these issues, and I feel like I've really thrown myself at the student government this year and really got involved the most that I can, and I would really like to continue doing that.
So So once again, my name is Montana Hunter, running for AMS Rep. I'm extremely passionate about engaging our students within some of the issues that are important in AMS, whether it be governance, Engage South. It's extremely important for students, in particular our students, to take a leading role in this and engage because we can. We have an incredibly talented and an incredibly diverse faculty, and right now we need to show it. We need to push that. We need to demonstrate to the rest of UBC just how exceptional we are. So I hope you will vote and encourage your friends to vote in the AMS elections, or AUS elections. Thank you.
That is it. Thank you to our candidates for coming out.